This is probably one of the biggest plot twists in One Piece history. I wanted to prepare a clever pun about history, but I just couldn't think of one. But let's do that thing we do and talk about it. Last reveal really puts into perspective Roger's words of how he wished he could live in Joy Boy's era. What kind of high-tech stuff would Roger have wanted to mess around with? It definitely makes Roger's words hit a lot differently now. Previously, there was a sense of perhaps living in a simpler time full of fun and unpredictable adventure. But now it's pretty clear that the past was full of technological advancements, the likes of which far surpass the imagination of Roger. It's like when we try to predict what the world is going to be like in 1,000 years and have a vague general desire to live in that society. Except the other way around, because Roger's like, damn, I miss the era of lightsabers. Ugh. Oof, I got terribly unlucky there. It also puts a new retrospective spin on Toki, who is from the Void Century. I imagine she might have been very confused to travel forward in time and discover that things have actually regressed. There must have been some moment where she went, hang on a second, did I travel back in time? I didn't think my fruit could do that. I can definitely see why it took an alliance of 20 kingdoms to bring down the original Great Kingdom though, because eventually there's only so far that having the tech advantage will get you against such overwhelming numbers. But it's also interesting to think about the fact that the world has practically stood still for 900 years now, almost like the world government has deliberately inhibited technological development, very much forbidding the exploration of the future in the same way that they forbid the study of the past. Because right now, this present moment, perfect. We can't risk changing anything by moving in either direction. It must be a uniquely scary thought to think that both the past and the future kind of end up giving us the same result. Either way, we're getting much more advanced and realizing that, hey, that world government, that seems like more of a hindrance to society rather than a protector. Maybe we should do something about that. But when you think about stuff like Nolan's flashback, that took place 400 years ago, and yet everything still looks like it could be happening today. The outfits, the technology, the systems of government, nothing has really changed between then and the present day, with the sole exception that it's no longer socially acceptable to wear chestnuts on one's head. However, very rapid developments have occurred within the last 2 years. The entirety of One Piece has really just been one big tech boom. And not just from Vegapunk either, but also factors like Warpol discovering and manufacturing Warper metal, which has entirely revolutionized anything to do with metalwork. So I think that the world government wanting to assassinate Vegapunks, plural. Whatever the case, I think that makes more sense now. I think they're afraid that one, Vegapunk, he obviously knows too much. And two, he is getting way too close to replicating the technology of the ancient kingdom. But that's not all. But first, it's dog time. Because this video is sponsored by Established Titles, a project based on a Scottish custom whereby landowners are referred to as lords, lairds, and ladies in English. In fact, my dog has recently become Lord Don Quixote Dog Flamingo, and was on his way to Scotland, but has now been assailed by various sea kings, oh no. Title packs give you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land with a unique plot number on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland. And with them, you can officially change your title to Lord, Laird, or Lady on credit cards and stuff. It's amazing. They make great last-minute gifts, and Established Titles plants a tree with every order, working with global charities to support restoration efforts. Plus, I've been told that everyone who uses my link will get plots next to each other, so we could even start our own funky Scottish Grand Line empire. Go to establishedtitles.com to shop their Black Friday sale and get an additional 10% off using code GRANDLINE10 to support the channel as well as my dog's ego. Speaking of, Dog Flamingo is currently sinking deep down into the bottom of the ocean, so hopefully Scotland is down there, and if not, then so do that thing, but for now it's back to you, me. It's very interesting that Vegapunk wishes to make a son. Feels awkwardly specific, especially when considering the reveal at the end. It does feel very specific. The way Lilith said, if only we could make our own miniature son, then we would be able to solve all of the problems ever. And if we want to read into the symbolism here, it would paint the Vegapunks as a very natural ally of Luffy, you know, the sun god. The man who will do the thing it is that brings about the dawn of the new world and all of that. And maybe in this case, it might be quite literal. Like Luffy is somehow involved in allowing the Vegapunks to create a son and bringing about global change through a utopian revolution. The focus on fire is interesting though, very interesting. It was specifically mentioned by Lilith that she would love some sort of eternal flame, which feels like something that could occur as a product of either Lunarian shenaniganry or maybe even an awakening of the Merameronemy. I mean, if Kuzan and Sakazuki can permanently change the climate of Punk Hazard through fight battling, then why can't a supercharged Sabo do something similar? I'm also becoming much more interested in Shaka, mostly because of the mask. I bring this up every time we have a masked character in One Piece because it's almost almost always relevant, but mask theory states that a character only wears a mask if they have something to hide. Good authors don't just use masks for no reason. With that said, sometimes it does. Like Bastille, he was a mask wearer who ended up just being a dude. But the vast majority of situations are more along the lines of Killer and Duval, where hiding their identity proves to be a pivotal plot point, which gives us the following possibilities. Vegapunk looks like someone we already know, or Vegapunk looks like someone we will meet in the future, or, and this is my favorite one, under the mask is an exceptionally wacky surprise. Like say he takes it off and there's no head, or it's a brain in a jar, or something like that. Now that we know all about this crazy technology, we can only think about what Enel has found on the moon. Oh, I am so excited for Enel. Much more so than I have been in the past. Ever. It has only just hit me that Enel found potentially insane technology, like beyond the simple cyborgs with their fun, narrow, bushy mustaches. And the reason for this is both exciting and terrifying. But it's because Enel is, depending on which way you look at it, he is the perfect or the exact wrong person to find this stuff. As a fan base, we often like to meme on Enel for his lackluster punch fighting performance, but the one thing I will always give him credit for is his exceptional engineering skills. I mean, the dude created the Arc Maxim. That shit powered by himself is like a mini ancient weapon. It was said to quite literally destroy Skypiea, so it might even be on par with an ancient weapon, but only when Enel is in command of it. So this genius engineer has accidentally his way into a stash of superpowered future tech from the past. He has a mind capable of tinkering and understanding how it functions, and even scarier, he has a devil fruit perfectly suited to power it all. He's definitely coming back. And the funniest thing is that when he does, nobody, absolutely nobody is going to know who he is. If you're not a Straw Hat or a Skypiea resident, you have never even heard of Enel. He may very well appear just like a classical god from the sky and try to claim that the world is his with his army of, again, narrowly mustached cyborgs. And that might finally lead to our last worst generation member, Mad Monk Urouge, getting some much needed attention, because his wings imply that he is from the island of Burka, which was the original Sky Island Enel destroyed before moving his operations to Skypiea. Also, he is Urouge as a child, he is Urouge as a woman, and he is Urouge with like a very cute bow in his hair. I almost never get to talk about Urouge. There is never a reason. But I just needed to dump all of that imagery onto you. You're welcome. Theory: the drugs from the Tama Tobacco box and the medicine passed down through the Mink generations are both ancient kingdom tech. I like this idea, but just one thing. This always gets me, and I feel so stupid when I do it. But the Bako part of Tama Tobacco means box. So when someone, usually me, says Tama Tobacco box, what they're actually saying is Tamate box. But this was the treasure of Fishman Island that contained the energy steroids used by Hody Jones and friends of Hody Jones. I honestly don't remember anyone's names but Zio. He was funny. But the rest of them just take up space in my mind brain for like actually useful information. But they're interesting to look back on because in this chapter, Pythagoras mentions growth acceleration, which is one of the effects of the energy steroids. They grant you temporarily wildly powerful strength, but in exchange, you age potentially several decades, depending on how many you take, which in the case of the new Fishman Pirates was a lot, like a lot. But those energy steroids could be an ancient form of what the Vegapunks are using right now to rapidly age the Jinbei Seraph. Or at least that's what they tried to do. I mean, instead of aging, the child version just got bigger. Like a lot bigger. The one thing that should be obvious is that the steroids almost certainly were not made by Fishman Island. If anything, they could have been a gift. Gift is probably the wrong word. They could have been a last-ditch weapon given to Fishman Island by the Great Kingdom to defend all of the important stuff that they have there, which was 2 poneglyphs and an ancient weapon. In the chapter, Vegapunk Edison said the Jinbei Seraph is still a child. Does that mean they will grow up to be adults and way stronger in the future? Is the Kuma Seraph already adolescent? This chapter was nuts. So like I said before, it seems that they tried to age Jinbei up but accidentally just created a giant child instead, which is a cool thought in and of itself because they've now succeeded where Caesar failed because he was trying to gigantify kids for Big Mom. I mean, in between being a complete and utter ass clown, that is, because that did take up the vast majority of his time and resources, and still does. But that means we could see giant versions of all of the Warlord kids. But then again, I don't think that every Seraph is having the same test run on them at the same time. Because as a scientist, which I am not, but if I was, I feel like I wouldn't want to experiment on all of my subjects at the same time with the same thing. You'd at least want to control and, maybe some spare children to work on in case of unintended results, like giant fish. Pythagoras also flags a hypothesis with bloodline elements or the lineage factor, whichever one you subscribe to, it's all basically just DNA. But Pythagoras poses the question of DNA recording a subject's experience, which almost strikes me as very similar to the Lamarckian theory of evolution, which is where your DNA adapts to the situation you're in, as opposed to being born with natural advantages to tap tackle life, which would be Darwinian evolution. This is a very big thing for One Piece though, because if this is the case, then inherited will isn't just a general theme in the series, it's like a literal scientific concept, because you pass on those bloodline elements to your spawn. So children like Ace are inherently born with experiences programmed into them from Roger's DNA. And maybe that's how the will of D exists. Each member of the D clan dies with a smile on their face because they have those bloodline elements of their ancient relatives who did the same, and now that's just a biological characteristic programmed into them. I really cannot understate just how huge that small line could be going forward. But as a more immediate concern, it means that the Seraphim could retain the experiences of their originals. A potential result of that might be the Seraph Boa Hancock falling in love with Luffy, or the Seraph Mihawk refusing to fight Shanks. It's all a big load of right now though, because we're starting to dive into concepts that take like entire sci-fi series to explore, and I can't help but feel like Oda is more inclined to streamline and simplify these very potentially complex ideas. Why does Sanji not even acknowledge the giant naked Robin? That's because Sanji is also something of a robot, or at the very least he has his own programming and his priority protocols. This is the priority list from lowest to highest. Cooking, enemy threats, women, naked women, and women in danger, right up the top. That's top priority. That's why he left Luffy during the raid, because a woman was in danger, or so he thought. And that is always priority number one. So even though, yes, there was a giant naked Robin present, Sanji was far too busy because Nami was in danger. I'd like to think he'd be the same if any Straw Hat was in danger, like say Usopp, but look, I honestly don't know. Could go either way. It was a great moment for Sanji, but the fight in general was an even greater moment for Frankie, the only Straw Hat whose attack actively concerns the Vegapunks. So there you go. Frankie Radical Beam confirmed to be more powerful than Diable Jumper. Power scalers? Have fun. It's quite subtle at the moment, but I really do enjoy the focus that Frankie is getting on Egghead Island. He hasn't been thrown into full-on protagonist mode, but in these group sections, Frankie is the one getting these small moments of relevance that he's never really had before. The interesting tidbits are coming from Frankie, and everyone else is just kind of like set dressing. What if Mr. Pink agreed to participate in Vegapunk experiments in exchange for funding for his wife? I both love and hate that. It's so depressing, but so hard-boiled. If that turns out to be anywhere near the case and something terrible has indeed happened to my beloved Senor Pink because he wanted to make sure that his wife was taken care of, then I swear to build a monument in his honor. I never expected to be this concerned for Senor Pink. But I'm legitimately like, please tell me he's still alive. His death would crush me more than Ace's. I'm not even joking. I really liked the panel where Brook and Zoro were just chilling, drinking tea. Small interaction like these amongst crew members that aren't Luffy really do something for me. I agree, it's always great to see these odd crew interactions. Because there are 10 Straw Hats now, meaning that we have a whole ton of different combinations of 2 that we can put together. I don't know exactly how many, I am not a maths, but in my estimation, it's a lot. And that's before we get to the different combinations of trios, quartets, etc. There are so many different crew dynamics that we may reach the end of One Piece without seeing all of them. So these small moments featuring 2 characters like Zoro and Brook are something I absolutely treasure. Just as you will treasure this video because it's also about One Piece, which is the thing you like, so watch it. Or not. Go about your day doing whatever it is you want to do. I am not your mother. Or am I?